Welcome to Cloud Channel. In this module, we will learn what is Azure DB for MySQL. In this module, we will talk about what is MySQL and how do we deploy this Azure DB for MySQL using Azure Portal. And also we'll talk about what is single server and what is flexible server and what are the differences between single server and flexible server. And at the end of this module, and I will show you how to create a Azure DB for MySQL using Azure Portal and how to connect and query using Azure Portal. And let's start. What is Azure Database for MySQL? So before we talk about Azure Database for MySQL, let's talk about MySQL. MySQL Database Service is a fully managed database service to deploy cloud-native applications. MySQL is a relational database management system based on SQL, structured query language. It can be used to store anything from a single record of information to an entire inventory of available products for an online store. Let's talk about what is Azure Database for MySQL. Azure Database for MySQL is a relational database service powered by the MySQL Community Edition. We can use either single server or flexible server to host a MySQL database in Azure. So earlier we discussed there are two single server and a flexible server. So at the end of this module, so I'll show you in the Azure portal. So we will have an option to deploy, to select a single server or flexible server. So we will talk about both these servers and how to deploy. And Azure Database for MySQL is fully managed database as a service offering that can handle mission critical workloads with predictable performance and dynamic scalability. And let's talk about Azure Database for MySQL delivers. It is zone redundant and same zone high availability and maximum control with ability to select our scheduled maintenance window. So we can select our maintenance schedule, earlier if you go to my previous modules, like in Azure Database for MariaDB, PostgreSQL, DB, or anything, Azure SQL DB. So we can schedule our maintenance. So here in Azure Database for MySQL, we have maximum control with ability to select our scheduled maintenance window. And data protection using automatic backups and point-in-time restore for up to 35 days. I'll show you how to select this, backup retention period when we create a server using Azure Portal. Now, also automated patching and maintenance for underlying hardware, operating system, and database engine to keep the service secure and up to date. And predictable performance, elastic scaling within seconds. So it doesn't take long, if you want to scale up or scale down, it's very quick. And that's why, here we see that elastic scaling within seconds. And cost optimization controls with low cost burstable SKU and ability to stop and start server. We can always start and stop servers. So we have seen a lot of services in Azure where we can stop and start, can talk about virtual machine, can talk about Synapse or any other databases. We can stop and start the servers. That's the best advantage with these Azure services. And we can monitor and automate to simplify management and monitor for large scale deployments. Let's talk about create, connect, and manage. So here, how do we create, connect, and manage Azure MySQL server in Azure? So we can use Azure CLI or Azure Portal or some customer management applications. So here, if you see in the diagram, so Azure Database Services Platform and then MySQL. And if you see, this is hosted in US West. And how do we access? So we have a database tools that we can use, the MySQL Workbench, PHP MyAdmin, MySQL Client. So we can use any of these tools to create, connect, and manage this Azure database for MySQL. So let's talk about the deployment model. So Azure database for MySQL powered by the MySQL Community Edition is available in two deployment models: flexible server and single server. So when we go to portal, we will see both these deployment models, flexible server and single server. Let's talk about flexible server. Azure database for MySQL flexible server is a fully managed production ready database service designed for more granular control and flexibility over database management functions and configuration settings. The flexible server architecture allows us to opt for high availability within single availability zone and across multiple availability zones. So flexible servers provides a better cost optimization controls with the ability to stop or start the server and bustable compute tier, ideal for workloads that do not need full compute capacity continuously. Let's talk about, like, what is this flexible servers are best suited for. Ease of deployment, simplified scaling, and low database management overhead for functions like backups, high availability, security, and monitoring. So we see a lot of Azure services, like, we can easily deployment, and they don't take long to deploy any application, and we can always scale up and scale down, and it doesn't take long, like, between, like, 2 minutes to 5 minutes, the maximum it takes, depends on the server and the load. And we can easily take out we can easily take the backups, and all Azure services are high availability, especially Azure database for MySQL, also high availability and security, and also it avoids a lot of overhead. And application developments requiring community version of MySQL with better control and customization. Production workloads with same zone redundant high availability, and managed maintenance windows. Simplified development experience. So these are all, like, the flexible servers are best suited for. Let's talk about Azure database for MySQL single server. Azure database for MySQL single server is fully managed database service designed for minimal customization. The single server platform is designed to handle most of the database management functions, such as patching, backups, high availability, security, with minimal user configuration and control. And this is important. Single servers are best suited only for existing applications already leveraging single server. If we have a new deployment or migrations, the flexible server would be the recommended deployment option. So, and I will go back to Azure portal, and I will show you guys how to create this Azure database for MySQL, and how to deploy using Azure portal, and then I will show you how to connect to this MySQL within the Azure portal. I'm in the Azure portal now. I will create an Azure database for MySQL server using this Azure portal. So let me go to home and let me go to search. I can just type MySQL, and here we see the option Azure database for MySQL servers. Let's click on that. And I don't have any MySQL servers. Now I want to create one. Either we can choose this create option, or we can choose this one, create Azure database for MySQL server. So either of this option will take us to that deployment stuff. So let me click on create Azure database for MySQL server. So now here we see two options: flexible server, single server, and we just discussed, like, which server is suited for, like, which kind of workloads and which platform. So here we can choose how do you plan to use the service. So in this module, I'll show you how to deploy the single server. So let's select the single server, create single server, and we need to select the Azure subscription and create a resource group. I will say this resource group for MySQL, and 01, this is the resource group name. And now we need to enter the server name. We need to Azure DB MySQL test 01. And server is available. If you see that, right, server name must be at least 3 characters and at most 63 characters. And it should only contain lowercase numbers and hyphens, no other things, no special characters. And server name must be available. So whatever name you are selecting, so you make sure that is unique name that you choose, and it must be available. So now we see all greens. Now this is server name is available. Let's pick the data source none, and the location we can select any locations. This is available all over the world, so we can choose Asia, Europe, or Africa, anywhere, Middle East. So for now I pick the location as East US and version 5.7. So here the important step, compute plus storage. So now let's click on configure server. So we see 3 options: basic, general purpose, memory optimized. So now I will just use the basic is up to 2 vCores with variable IO performance. Since this is a demo version, so I select this basic one, and we can always increase the storage size. If you see on the screen, you can see that. So when I increase this size, so our price also going up. So when I decrease this storage, and our price comes down. So for now, since this is just a demo, I'll just keep it 25 GB, and storage auto growth, yes. And backup retention period we discussed, it is available up to 35 days. So if we don't want to keep backup for 35 days, we can just keep it default 7 days, and we're good here. Let me select all these options. Now here we can see that 2 vCores, 25 GB storage, and backup retention period is 7 days. Now let me create the username, the admin username, and we need to enter the password. So the password is matching, and please follow all these requirements. The username must be 1 character, not more than 16 characters. Must only contain characters and numbers, no other special characters. And we cannot use some of these admin login names: Azure underscore super user, admin, administrator, root, guest. We cannot use. If you see that I used admin, but I added 01. Let's go to next step, additional setting, infrastructure double encryption enable. Yeah, it's always like, our option. So, and if you see that infrastructure encryption cannot be enabled in the single selected region. So the region that we selected is US, it is not available. And let's go to the tags. We can create tags to identify our resources. And let's go to review. And here in the review, we see that, like, our estimated cost per month, 52 and 14 cents per month. That is our estimated cost. And we can see the subscription and the resource group and the location and the compute, storage, and backup retention period. So everything looks good here. So now I want to deploy this server. Now everything validating and deployment in progress. So it just takes, like, a few minutes to get it ready. And once the SQL Server deployed, then I'll show you guys how to connect to this Azure database for MySQL using Azure Cloud Shell. And we can just use that Azure Cloud Shell to connect to this MySQL. Now the deployment is completed. Now I will just go to the resource. And here we can see all the server names and the status available, location, everything. And this is our server name. So I will just copy this, that we need this server name to log into MySQL server using Cloud Shell. So let me, and this is the username, and the username is admin01, and I will copy this. We need both this username and the server name to connect to MySQL server using Cloud Shell. So let me click on Cloud Shell, and it's getting ready. So create a storage. So now it's creating. So it just takes like a little while to get it ready. Now our Cloud Shell is ready. Now we need to run a few commands to connect to MySQL. Just come here, select either PowerShell or anything. So we need to select, we can run this either PowerShell or CLI. So for now, I will select the bash and confirm. So now we have ready this shell. Now we need to enter the command that we want to run. So here you see that MySQL, and this is our server name that we just deployed, and our admin username. Now enter. Now we need to enter the admin password to connect to this server. So please specify SSL options and retry. So let me just look into this error. So the problem here that let me show it to you guys why we are getting this error. So SSL connection is required, please specify. So for now, what we can do this, right? So we can go to settings in our Azure database for MySQL resource, go to connection security. So here we enforce SSL connection. Since this is a demo, I'll go ahead and disable this and save this option. And now updating the connection security settings. So once this is done, and we should be able to log in to this MySQL server. It just takes a few minutes. Now, if you see that successfully updated the connection security settings. So now I will go ahead and try again. Let me paste this. So now I just created a database. So affected. Now, let me show you. So now if we try to log in again, so we don't see that issue again because we disabled. Now, let me just enter this login credential again, enter, and enter the username. So client with is not allowed to connect to this MySQL server. So now how do we avoid this error? So I will show you guys very quick. So here, if you see connection security, so we just enforce that SSL connection disable and if you go to the top of the page, and here you see that allow access to Azure services. So here we selected no. By default, the options for SSL is enabled, and then this option allow access to Azure services disabled. Now I need to select this and save it. Now we are updating the connection security settings again, and after that we should be able to log in. So now our connection security settings are updated. Now I will try one more time. So now enter the password. So now we see that, like, we are connected. Now we can create databases and we can run our query. Let me just create a simple database here. Create database test db01. Let me create this database. Now the database is created. Now I want to use this database. Can just say use and just enter the database name, test db01, and we should be able to use this database. Enter. I will close this and just enter. Now database is changed. If you want to quit this Cloud Shell from SQL Server, if you want to quit, just enter quit. Now we are logged off from this MySQL Server. So this is how we can connect to MySQL Azure DB for MySQL Server using Azure Cloud Shell. So whenever we see any login issues, we can just, like, allow access to Azure services, or enforce SSL connection is disabled. But in a real time, all these options are enabled, and the organizations, they have a strong firewalls, and they use, like, a specific IP ranges just to connect these services. And so far in this module, we learn how to we learn about what is Azure database for MySQL, and what are single server and flexible server, and which server is suited for which platform. And we learn how to create Azure DB for MySQL Server using Azure Portal, and how to deploy. And we used Cloud Shell to connect to this Azure DB for MySQL, and we ran some queries, and everything looks good. If you have any questions on this module, please post your comments. And if you have any other questions, like, you can always reach out to me. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe the channel, and thank you.